Okay, folks. Just to kick things off, I'm just going to introduce things. RSPB are delighted to be teaming up with the Rainbow Project to deliver two events for this year's Pride Month. And this is the first of those two events. The second, just to give you a bit of overview of it, takes place next week. It's called Pride in Our Planet, and what we're doing there is asking each of our political parties what their proposals are to address the climate and nature emergency. So that takes place, we date for your diary, Tuesday, 18th of August from 7 to 8:30, obviously on Zoom again as well. So if you want to register for it, send a wee email to tabitha.newell@rspb.org.uk. And Tabitha, if you want to put that email address in the chat, and of course if you simply want to put your email address into the chat box, we could take those away and put you on the list for that next week as well. So that's proven to be an interesting lineup. Some big names will be in attendance, and we're just finalising the last couple of speakers, so we'll get further information on that out over the next couple of days. Just about tonight's event then. The event is being recorded for anyone who has been unable to make it. And during the discussion, please feel free to go into the chat box and fire a few questions for Claire to address afterwards, and I'll pick those up as we go along. So finally then, the speaker this evening is Claire Barnett. She's the RSPB's Eastern Area Manager. So she's responsible for a big swathe of country from Rathlin Island all the way down to the fields of County Down. So she's 15 years experience of conservation and remains really, really passionate about giving nature a home, as you'll see from her presentation tonight. So Claire, over to you.
Hi, thank you very, very much. It's really good to be here. Thank you, Rainbow Project, for the opportunity. I have a bit of a disclaimer to make first, and that is, I'm just going to get the presentation up. I have practiced, so bear with me. Voila. Yeah, a bit of a disclaimer. So I am going to give you a talk about bringing diversity to your garden, although I have absolutely no qualifications in horticulture, and I actually don't have a garden. But I do have a backyard, and I do have a small allotment plot, and I get usually roped into helping my mum and my partner work in their gardens as well. So as Dahi says, I'm incredibly passionate about wildlife, and hopefully by the end of this talk, you will have picked up a little bit of that passion and got some ideas to do maybe just one or two things in your own space for nature. So this is Ruby. She is not in a garden. She is in a species-rich grass field beside where my mum lives. And a species-rich grass field basically means a field that is full of wildflowers and plants, like this one here. And it's not the best species-rich grass field in the world, but it is quite a nice example of one. So these types of fields have declined by 98% in Northern Ireland. 98%. And the species associated with grassland fields like this, which includes our bumblebees, our butterflies, our bird life, are continuing to decline at an enormous rate. This is basically
Claire, sorry, you're actually not just sharing your screen at the moment.
Am I not?
No, you're not, sorry.
Heavens. Right, back again. I practiced. There's a blue line around here. I am so sorry, folks.
Don't be silly.
I have a line through my screen. Tabitha, is that not allowing me to share it?
Why don't you quickly send it to me if that's okay, and I can share it.
Let me see. I go out. Hang on. I go back into Zoom. Bear with me 1 second. Sorry. And then I'll open this up.
If you hover over share screen, then you should be able to select the screen that you want to share. That's it. There you go.
And PowerPoint. Are you seeing a cute border terrier in a field?
We are indeed.
Yo, that is Ruby. This is a species-rich field, which has declined by 98%. Okay, so this field, I went onto Google Maps or Zoom Earth and zoomed out to have a look at what is surrounding this lovely little field. Now, just have a look at that map and see if you can figure out which field Ruby was in. I'll give you like 3 seconds. Okay, it was this one here. Now, the one to the right of it looks even better, but that was actually sold about 10 years ago as a site for a house, so that's gone. And the rest of that picture is made of intensively farmed grassland. The big slurry tank right in the middle, that big circle, and all of those fields, you can see the lines where the slurry is just pumped out. And if you're not surrounded by green, shiny ryegrass, you might be lucky enough to live in an area where there's cereals like wheat and oats still grown, but they are disappearing very, very quickly. So I must stress, this is not farmers' fault. RSPB work with over 400 farmers in Northern Ireland, and it's capped at that number due to our resources, not the desire from farmers to get advice and how to look after their farms. But what we want to do as an organisation is support farmers so they can manage their land in a way that is beneficial for nature, as well as being able to bring an income for their family farm. This grass verd is an exact same picture. I took it early on in the spring, but you can see in the background the green grass fields. There's just ryegrass, very, very little else in it. But you can see the bluebells and the early purple orchids and the pig nut and all the lovely stuff in this verd. And that once upon a time was in our fields. You'll also see, if you're driving around at the moment, lots of campaigns and posters on our roadside verges like this one here, which is Don't Mow Yet. This is a Causeway Coast and Glens one, but there's ones across nearly every county has something like this, and it's encouraging people not to cut our grass verges, because this is where a lot of the biodiversity is in our countryside, which is very, very sad. So on that, off the countryside in Northern Ireland, let me think, 1 million hectares are farmed. And in our, which just shows you how important our gardens can be. So this is another Zoom Earth picture of Belfast. I just literally picked a spot and went in to have a look at this. So 65% of the population in Northern Ireland live in urban areas. This is not taken away for all the countryside gardens. I just don't have a figure for that. And so a quarter of the land mass in our urban areas are gardens. This does not take into account backyards, balconies, windowsills, other spaces that people can utilise to bring wildlife closer to themselves. So just have a look at this picture, go back to where we are in our countryside, and just realise what we can do in our own gardens to help save nature. The Nature of Gardens report was actually a report carried out by B&Q. RSPB did review it along with other environmental charities, and basically it was looking at people's desire and need for a green space close to them, a quality green space. And obviously with recent times and lockdown, we've all sort of slowed down a wee bit, started to appreciate the space that we do have and tried to make the most of it. So this is kind of building on that, for us all to slow down a little bit, stop, listen, look, and just enjoy it, and try and attract as much into that space as absolutely possible. So it's not just good for nature, it's not just good for all of those species, many of which are in decline, but it's really good for us. It's good for our souls, it's good for our well-being, and it's very, very good for our mental health. So one of the easiest ways you can bring in certain bird species into your garden is by providing food. This is so, so easy. This is a Niger seed feeder in my mum's garden. It looks really dirty, but mummy is very good at cleaning them. So it's really important to try and clean your feeders as often as possible. So every time you refill it, mum will give us a good clean out with a little bit of disinfectant to stop any spread of disease. And you have a little siskin here and a goldfinch. These are both finches. They love Niger seed. If you put it out, it will take no time at all for these birds to find your garden. But the more variety of food that you put out, the bigger selection and bigger diverse species of birds that you're going to bring into your garden. So this picture here is brilliant. And one thing I must mention, if you are putting out feeders, try and put them somewhere where the birds have a little bit of security. And that basically means that if a sparrowhawk or peregrine falcon or a pussycat came along, they had somewhere to run into and take cover and hide from any predators that are there. So this garden is brilliant. They have lots of different feeders. I want you to watch really closely. This is a relatively new bird species to Northern Ireland, probably in the last 5 or 6 years starting to come in. It has, it just was never here before. We never lost it as such. It was in GB, but it was never on the island of Ireland before. So it's just come over and it's still quite scarce, but it's very widespread. So this is a little video that was taken outside Lisburn. The man wouldn't allow me to disclose who he was or to credit it in case a pack of twitchers turned up, which I don't think will be the case, but just enjoy this for a wee second. I might play it twice because it's so good. So that is a great spotted woodpecker, and they love feeders. And as woodpeckers do, they love old trees, and that's where they build their nest. So that's hammering of the woodpecker is exactly what they do. And when you get to hear the drumming, that sound during the spring, summer months, you'll know the woodpecker's about. So you never know what turns up. So this is a bullfinch that was taken. Back of my house, I just live in a small 2-bed terrace, but in the back of my house is a railway line and is absolutely fantastic. So I include that in my garden space, and they love coming into berries. So winter food source is really important. Natural food source is really good, but the natural food source for berries and stuff is there in the winter time. And bullfinches will come in and they will clean up this very, very quickly. Sloes, hawthorns, lots of natural hedging is really, really important and provides lots of easy food for birds like thrushes and song thrushes and blackbirds, that sort of thing, love big berries on trees. So I kind of want to take this an opportunity to introduce you to some of the other team members in RSPB Northern Ireland. In the top left-hand corner is Terry Goldsmith. He is our Senior Fundraising Officer. So Terry's job is to find money and bring it into RSPB. So he works with a lot of corporates, lots of different things, but it's basically to fund the work that we do. Terry's background is kind of in banking, so this is a really good role for him. But before that, he was one of the founding members of Bog Meadows in Belfast. So Bog Meadows is somewhere where I go every single morning at the moment for Dahi's walk run challenge. So I'm out there every morning and I see bullfinches every single day. So there's lots of lovely stuff and lots of lovely space to have there. So I asked some of the team to send me some pictures from their gardens that kind of inspire them. And this is Terry. I'm torn between a hawthorn and a blackthorn. I think it's a hawthorn, but it produces nectar source in the spring and summer months. So this is a lovely speckled wood butterfly. We have about 25 species of butterfly in Northern Ireland. I think 9 of those species are have suffered a 41% decline, since 2006. So some of them are in serious trouble. But they love things like this. And then that hawthorn will turn to berries in the winter and it'll feed the birds. Really simple. Not all the birds that we have obviously come to feeders or eat berries. This is a little tree creeper. It's not the best photograph, but it feeds on insects. It loves going up and down trees. They're the most amazing little bird to watch. But if you have to be very quiet and just watch, but they'll work their way up the bark of the tree, picking out all of the insects, and then they fly down. They can't walk backwards, so they fly back down and then walk back up again. It's really lovely to watch. But things like the tree creepers and pied wagtails and things, they only eat insects. So it's really important to have lots of vegetation about, which we'll talk about very shortly. This is a little baby robin. Another thing that's important about gardens or the spaces that we have is to try and include cover, somewhere for them to feel safe. So birds are no different than ourselves. We want food in our bellies. We want somewhere safe to go home to. And we want something else which I'll talk about in a minute. But so shelter is really important. So putting up nest boxes is a really, really simple way of attracting birds into your garden. This really sad looking picture is Matthew Tickner up on the left hand side. I couldn't get a better photo of him, but he is looking down. He's an ecologist. So he works across all of our reserves and in the wider countryside, where we give advice to farmers and do different things. So he comes out to help to make sure that we're doing the very best for the habitats and species that are there. But this is the bird boxes in his house. Now these are all for sparrows. So sparrows, the little house sparrow, love nesting in colonies. So if you put the boxes close together, they'll all come to there. So one box for a sparrow is probably not enough. So you have the space to put up as many as you can. This is another one of Matthew's photos. This is a little blue tit. So very similar looking box, but all different birds. The vast majority of them like different sizes of holes and different diameters. I'm not going to bore you with the details of it, but if you are trying to attract a certain species, have a little look on Google or the RSPB website and see exactly what box you should get for the bird. For robins, for example, they like the open front. They don't like holes. They just like the open front of boxes, and they'll go into those. There is, of course, some birds that you do not have to put a box up for. This is Michelle Hill up in the left-hand corner. She is our head of casework and policy, casework and planning. And she and her team are in charge of looking at any dodgy planning on our special sites. So we are a very small team in Northern Ireland. We cannot take on every single planning objection that comes in, but if there is something that we feel is going to destroy a very sensitive or very special or a designated site, we will object to that. And that is part of Michelle and her team's work to go ahead and do that. She also influences lots of wildlife legislation. Does lots of really, really amazing work. But these are our house martins. So these birds are coming from Africa every year to make their home in our home. So it's really important to have a lovely space for them. They will not come to our feeders. They are insect feeders, and they eat when they're on their wing. Another really amazing bird that is completely reliant on our homes for their homes is the swift. Now, the swift comes from sub-Saharan Africa every year. It travels 4,000 miles to come and nest in our homes. It usually goes under the eaves. It's a very, very clean bird. You would not even know it's there. I do not have any nesting. This is my backyard. I don't have any nesting here, so I've put up some swift boxes to try and encourage them to come. So I've had juveniles taking a look about, but hopefully next year I'll get some nesting birds. The swift is a really amazing species. Now, it is mostly associated with kind of urban areas because of the housing there. But this bird, once it leaves its nest, it will not land again for maybe 3 whole years. It does everything on the wing. It does everything in flight. It drinks on the wing, it eats on the wing, it mates on the wing, it sleeps on the wing. It is just a really, really amazing bird. And what's happening, unfortunately, this bird is declining also at an alarming rate. It's coming back from Africa 4,000 miles every year to find out that its nest, its hole in the house has either been boarded up or the house has been knocked down completely. So you don't have, if you're building a new house, think about putting in swift bricks, which are really amazing, or you can put up boxes and try and attract them that way. So they're really in kind of big trouble. On the RSPB web page, you'll find the Swift Mapper. So this is trying to record as many of the swifts that we can, so we can kind of do more to help their conservation. In Northern Ireland, we have 652 records, which is not too bad, but I know, including myself, I haven't got my records on yet. So if you do see a swift, if you have them nesting in your home or know where they're nesting, please go onto the website, go to the Swift Mapper and record it, because it really helps us, especially with Michelle and her team doing lots of planning and casework, and we can kind of watch out to make sure that their homes are protected. So yeah, so just like us, they need food in their bellies, they need somewhere comfortable and warm to stay, and they need water. Really, really important. So I pulled this lovely cast iron water bath out of a skip. And it's down at my mum's house, and this is a little robin having a wee drink from it. But I'm not going to ask any of you to rummage through scripts. It is not necessary. You can go up to your attic and bring down an old paint tray. This is Matthew Tickner has done this in his, I cannot speak, I'm sorry, has done this in his garden. and it's absolutely brilliant. It works so well. Why it works really well, these are house sparrows, and they're going to drink, but they also need to wash their feathers to make sure they can fly. It's really, really important. But if you think about a paint tray, it's got 2 levels, and that's really important. So the wee birds don't get stuck, or insects or amphibians or other stuff that goes in there can get out very quickly. So try it and see what happens. So now I want to go in and talk a little bit about what we can do in our own spaces, not just for birds, but for other things. And I want us to remind ourselves why we're doing this. So we're doing it for nature, but we're also doing it for our own mental health and well-being. So when I was walking around Belfast, I was on the street, and I just saw this yard. It was in the front yard, just front yard. I took a picture of it because I thought, not very inspiring. Because 5 houses down, there is this. And the difference, folks, from how you feel stepping out into that to stepping out in that, surely to goodness, there has to be some merit in all of us trying to do a little something, even if it's not for nature, but nature will absolutely come to that. Even if it's just for ourselves, we should really think about what we can do. So they have literally just planted a wildflower mix in the front of their garden, and boom, look at that. And in the planter in the windowsill is an evergreen shrub called a hebe, H-E-B-E. It's absolutely brilliant. Lots of different varieties, but it has really great flowers. And each variety will have a different flower, but bees absolutely love it. So this is really lovely. So I thought, rather than slagging off other people's gardens, like the concrete one, I thought I'd show you my backyard. So it is a work in progress. I do not get a little sun, so I don't have a lot of flowers. So I just have to try and make do with what I've got here. And I use a lot of mirrors in my backyard because for the sunshine that I do get, it helps reflect it across. And I did get my peonies out. In the back of this picture, that purple flower is a salvia amistad. It is amazing. It will literally flower from July right through to November. It is brilliant. And on the back wall, I've got an evergreen honeysuckle, which is great. So the bullfinches come in and take the berries from the honeysuckle once the flower is over. And I have an evergreen jasmine, which is amazing. When it's in flower and it's just past flowers, say it flowers in June, when you step out into the yard at night, it lets a scent out at night. So the smell in the backyard is really, really beautiful. But they let the scent out because they want to attract moths. Now, I do not have one decent picture of a moth, but moths are really important as well for pollinating and just for lots of different things. So they'll be attracted into night scented plants. This is Catherine Cochran. She is head of communications in Northern Ireland. So she does all our press releases. She works with her team and they do lots of press releases and social media, work on the TV companies, radios, blah, 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 all of that massive, amazing work that she does. She received one of these bee bombs up in the right-hand corner for Christmas. I have at least got 10 of them from people and I have done nothing with them. But I'm going to do it now as in this picture. So she planted hers in a little pot outside her front door. And voila, there you go. Now it's just coming into flower, so it's going to look absolutely amazing in a week or so, but she's got a whole mixture of stuff in there from red dead nettle and oxeye daisies and lots of different things. So that's going to be really lovely. Really, really simple. Who could not do that? This is Darren Roberts. So this is his garden. So it's a slightly bigger space. And his wildflowers are now starting to self-seed, so they're starting to come out. So it's very, very natural looking. Things like poppies are amazing. They will just set seed all the time, and they'll turn up in the cracks in your pavement and all over the place. And they're very short-lived, but they're really, really lovely, and they definitely put a smile on people's faces. So I should say Darren Roberts is our head of funding development. So he's looking for new opportunities, new ways to develop funding. Now, lawns. I was in a garden centre the other day with my partner. We're looking at different things, and when we came out and sat in the car, he looked at me and he said, "You know, those garden centres are absolutely packed to the gills, but where are all the nice gardens?" And it's so true. When you're driving around the countryside, there's just loads of lawn, loads of castlewell and gold shrubs. But honestly, when you see a garden, you smile because they're actually quite rare. So in your lawn, if that's all you have, this is one really easy thing that you can do. So this is Matthew, our ecologist, this is his lawn. And you can see on either side of these flowers and long grass, he has cut, but he hasn't cut a strip in the middle. And in the strip in the middle is full of common knapweed, lots of grasses, and some of our butterfly species will really, really love this. And invertebrates, lots of different insects will be in and out of there. It's really important. So common knapweed is a wildflower that you can get the seeds from and sow. This is a little carder bee. We have 97 different species of bees in Ireland, 20 of which are bumblebees. So there's lots, there's not just one bumblebee, there's 20 different species of bumblebees. So they're really, really important. Now, a third of all our bees in Ireland are threatened with extinction, which is just kind of crazy. To put it into context, right, there is 100 crops, this is a fact, 100 crops, so that's grass, that's wheat, that's barley. 100 different crops provide 90% of the world's food. 71 of those crops rely on pollinators to make the food, to turn in, you know, to become food. 71%. And in Ireland alone, a third of the species are at risk of extinction. So I don't know how that doesn't sell alarm bells ringing in our government and making people worry and scream and shout. And in Northern Ireland, pollinators bring in £7 million annually to our apple growers. So pretty important. So do not underestimate what you can do in your own garden. I'm going to stop pointing. Now, this is Sandura montana, otherwise known as mountain knapweed, and it's pretty much the garden alternative, the garden plant alternative to common knapweed, the wildflower. So I just wanted to quickly talk about native versus non-native. So Centura montana, that is kind of continental Europe plants, whereas knapweed is very much localized. What you want in your garden is completely up to yourself. If you want to go 100% natural native plants, and do that, and you will attract lots of different species. But garden plants are also absolutely brilliant at bringing in different pollinators, and they will serve a really, really important purpose. So you have to work, or you can do a mixture of both, is what I like to do. So don't be put off by non-native species, even wildflowers. The reality is our pollinators are in so much trouble. The sooner that we get any pollen and nectar sources into your countryside, into your gardens, into our green spaces, into your windowsills, the better. So as long as they're not invasive. So things like Himalayan balsam, you may have heard of, I don't have a picture of it, but it's a pretty invasive plant. They do not sell them in garden centres, so you cannot go wrong. Now, this mountain knapweed is actually a very strong plant. It will take hold, so if you have a big space, put it in, but it will develop very quickly, but it will flower for ages. It'll flower from early spring. If you deadhead it, and you hear gardeners talk about deadheading an awful lot, all you do is when the flower is almost over, nip it off, and that will reflower itself. So plants, flowers, all they want to do is reproduce. So the flower turns into a seed. The seed is then either spread by the wind or by pollinators. Out, job done. You take away the seed, the flower, it doesn't get to turn to seed. So the plant panics a wee bit and goes, right, I'll produce another flower. So you get another big flush of flowers coming through. So this is a little carder bee on Matthew's knapweed up in Portrush. And this is a lovely painted lady on my knapweed, my mum's knapweed in Clocker. So the painted lady is a migrant butterfly. It comes the whole way from North Africa every single year. So I don't know what that is. I don't know, 3,500 miles. This little butterfly flies 3,500 miles over here, and it lays its eggs. It uses our plants as food plants for the caterpillars. So really, really important to have different plants, which I'll talk about in a few minutes for that wee butterfly. So I have a bit of a boo-boo here on the left-hand side. This lovely white tall plant is a hollyhock, and somebody grew it from seed and they give it to me as a little green plant. And I thought, oh, happy days, anything free, I will take it. Thank you very much. So I planted it in my backyard. And like I said, my backyard doesn't get a lot of sun, so it grew really, really tall. So I watched it for months getting taller and taller and taller as it was going towards the light. And then poof, all these white flowers came out. I should be happy because it looks quite nice, but these are double flowers. These are absolute boo-boos for pollinators. I have watched Bumblebees go up to the flower, just look and just walk away again and go, no good for me. They can't get in. There's no pollen or nectar for them to get at. They're just absolutely no good to them. Whereas our lovely native foxglove, of which there are lots of garden varieties, is absolutely amazing for bumblebees. Just watch as they climb in to the little bells and get all the pollen and nectar that they need. Foxgloves are really easy to deadhead as well. Just cut them back at the base and they will reflower. They're also brilliant self-seeders. So once you buy one foxglove or grow one from seed, let it spread itself and you'll get this lovely naturalized look around your garden. This is a green veined white butterfly, another reasonably common butterfly. It's flying, it's on the wing at the moment, so it's flying about. It is sitting on hydrangea, and I would make you think that hydrangeas are just brilliant for pollinators. Hydrangeas are in flower right now, so when you're driving around or walking about, you'll see these lovely shrubs with big fat flower heads on, and they look absolutely amazing. They come in different colors, from blue to baby pinks like this to raspberry pinks, lots of different colors, but they are sterile. They have been bred so much that those flowers, there's no pollen or nectar on them at all. There is one variety, I can't remember the name of it, I will try and fish it out, of hydrangea that is good for pollinators, but these are no good at all. But they look amazing. And if they make you smile and make you feel better, get one in your garden. Absolutely. But just do something else as well for insects and for pollinators. This is a butterfly bush, the buddleia. It is a bit like the mountain knapweed. It will spread quite rapidly, but it is amazing for butterflies. They absolutely love it. They're all coming into flower right now. Also deadhead them. They'll reflower for you in the same season. I have lots of pictures of peacock butterflies, which is this one here, because they're big show-offs and they open up and they just sit there and they let you photograph them. Whereas some butterflies are much more difficult to photograph. So peacocks are also on the wing now, so keep your eye out for them. You'll recognize them quite simply. They're a big butterfly. When their wings are closed, they're very black, and they have these big peacock eyes on their wings. This is Tabitha. Tabitha, I forgot your title, but it is something like Campaign Policy Officer. And this is Tabitha's mum and dad garden here. So it's quite a more formal garden, which I really like. But you can see there is nothing in there that wildlife is not going to love. So whatever your personal choice is, if it is a bit of a wild furore of a thing, go for it. If you like a more formal approach, then make that happen. It's absolutely brilliant. So Tabitha does lots of campaign work for us in agriculture. I'm going to talk about one of them later on, but agriculture campaigns, but also just people engagement and saving nature campaigns to get the general public involved in the work that we do and kind of share that information about. So in the foreground of this photograph is one of my favorite plants. It is the purple one. It is Verbena borealis. It is really lovely. So there's lots of different varieties of verbena that you can get. Some are quite small, some medium height. They flower really well. Insects love them. Verbena borealis is absolutely brilliant because you don't need to stake it. It's really, really strong, and butterflies absolutely love it. This is another painted lady. So this is a migrant butterfly that comes from Africa every year, and is just really enjoying that. So the verbenas are out in flower at the moment, but they're brilliant. They self-seed. If I was here in person with you, I'd give you all a plant each to take home because they're brilliant, but they self-seed in a lovely way, and they're beautiful. They're lovely. So there's just a few other wee plants I'm going to pick out that are brilliant for pollinators and other invertebrates. So it's worth your while investing in them or growing them from seed or taking cuttings from someone as well. So this is the sedum, lots of different types, also known as the ice plant. This one here is a very green leaf. The one with the wee carder bee has a much darker, richer kind of green leaf. Didn't describe it very well, but they're both really, really good for pollinators. So yeah, and a lovely flower as well, big, big head. This is a small tortoiseshell. I find them impossible to photograph because they would not sit still, but they're on a wallflower. Bull's Maeve, this one's called. It is brilliant. It flowers all spring and summer. It does not stop. If you deadhead, it just keeps coming, and the butterflies love it. I have a little video.
No, peacocks are one of the...
somebody talking about different butterflies, but they're lovely, and it's really bushes up really well, really nice. Grows really, really well from cuttings as well. This is a plant no one's heard of, no one talks about it. It's called Ligularia, and it is not the most attractive plant, but boy, oh boy, oh boy, do butterflies absolutely love it. So it's in flower at this time of year, and there's quite a gap in nectar and pollen sometimes at this particular time, so it's a really, really good one to have in for August. You see in this picture on the left, this is my mum's garden, and she's got 4 peacocks on it. And then you've got this lovely one here. This is a red admiral. This is another really lovely butterfly that we have in this country. I haven't seen one recently, but they should be on the wing as well. So plant it's really easy. I took a cutting from, not a cutting, I literally got a spade and stuck it in the ground and took a big chunk of it out and replanted it, and it did really, really well. So this blue flowered plant is called Nepeta. That's good to read it. And it is also another one of those. It's really easy to propagate. It's really easy to divide. So you don't have to go out and buy all of these plants. Go to your friends, go to your parents, go to your aunties and uncles. If they have garden plants, take a bit off at home, stick it in, and it should do very, very well. So this is Nepeta. This video was taken at like 7 o'clock in the morning. So there's only one bumblebee on at the moment, but usually it is absolutely chock-a-block with bumblebees and different insects. But the Nepeta is also more commonly known as catmint or catnip. And I have one in my backyard, but it never gets a chance to flower. So for anybody that has a cat, the catnip is in your cat toys. It's the dried leaves of Nepeta. And this certain particular cat is in love with the catmint in my backyard, and it doesn't get a chance. This is another lovely, lovely plant. Oh, it's beautiful. The leaves are gorgeous. It's called lamb's lug or lamb's ears. Divides really well. And bees love it. So this plant, I took this at the weekend, this video. It is nearly over, so the flowers are nearly gone on it, but there's still bumblebees buzzing away, taking all the flowers. It's just really amazing. Please note the dandelion clock in the background. So goldfinches, all the finch families, they love those. They will go in and they will take the seed at the bottom of those and they'll devour them. Thistles and dandelions are another really good source for finches. There's another couple of lovely ones. So when I was talking about the hollyhock, that big white flower, which is really double, I'm going to play this video of the pink flower now. This is a Japanese anemone, really beautiful flower, but just look how open that flower is. And you'll be able to listen to the bumblebee go around it, but look at his back legs. So bumblebees, all bees, gather up their nectar and pollen and they stick it in their back legs, back pockets, basically, and they gather it up. So you'll see little yellow sacs in the back of his legs. I just play it again so you can see it. So that's a really, really good feast. And this here is Agapanthus, really another plant, just coming into flower now. Different varieties, so they're all really, really good for bumblebees. When I was taking this video, it just did not stop buzzing around it. This lovely lady up here on the left-hand corner is Caroline Marshall. She is a program manager for one of our big European projects, Interreg funded, called CAB, which is Conservation Across Biodiversity Borders. So we work with the Republic of Ireland, Birdwatch Ireland, and colleagues in Scotland to do lots of different conservation action on the ground. Most of it is on peatland and peatland restoration on our bogs, but also working with curlew and different farmland birds through that project. So Caroline is an amazing gardener. She's also a fellow beekeeper, and she's given me lots of photographs for this, but this is her climbing rose, and it's just kind of to remind people that if you do not have a lot of ground space, don't forget to look up, use your walls, and use whatever cover you get, because this is absolutely brilliant for pollinators. In my own backyard, I have got ivy growing up one of the walls. It's covering the bird box, but hopefully soon birds will be actually able to nest in the ivy. I always see them pottering about it, taking out insects, but for me, one of the important things of ivy is the flower. Nobody ever thinks about ivy even flowering. This flower comes out in kind of the autumn time, and it's an incredibly important source of pollen and nectar for honeybees. and they really rely on this to build up their stores for their winter time. So cannot go wrong. So that's in the winter. And then when bees, all bees come out of hibernation, one of the first flowers they go to is our lovely little humble dandelion. So try and not cut your lawn if it's got dandelions in it too early, because the bees will really, really be thirsty and hungry, and they will go straight to this to get some food. Now, I do not have a photograph, stupidly, but this time of year we're coming into September and in the autumn, and that, folks, is when you start to plant your bulbs. So spring flowering bulbs like crocuses and tulips, oh my goodness, they are a lifesaver for our pollinators and our bumblebees. So please start planting them now, and then they'll have a lovely show through the winter. And there's so many different types and varieties that you can put in, but they really brighten up the garden. I love it when crocuses and snowdrops keep coming up in the spring, and kind of, you know, there is life after winter, but really, really important. Now, this is a little video of honeybees in my backyard. I took this video today, and you'll see there's a big bumblebee floating about in there as well. But when I opened the window to take a big video, the smell of honey coming from a hive is absolutely phenomenal. So I try and harvest honey every year. This is a brood frame, not the honey, but you'll see all the bees doing really well, and it's a really healthy frame. I also have a hive down in Clocker, down at my mum's, and I never get honey off it. I actually have to feed the bees sometimes over the winter because they are simply not getting enough pollen and nectar to make enough honey for access to give away to people. But my bees in Belfast, which is really, really sad, because I want my countryside to be better than my urban living, but they do really well, and they're able to bring in lots of pollen and nectar. And the railway line really helps with that, as well as the parks and people's gardens, but it's really, really important. I wasn't going to put anything in about evergreen shrubs, you know, like fir bushes and stuff and things like that, because it just, you know, they're good and they provide structure to gardens, which is really important, and they're a bit of green over the winter months. But on Saturday morning, I was down with my mum, and I looked at the window. It was a lovely misty morning, and I looked right across, and I could not believe my eyes when I seen how many cobwebs were on this one fir tree. I didn't know what type it is, I'm afraid, but just look at that. So there's lots of stuff going on in our gardens that we don't even know about, we do not think about, but that is a really, really important, place for spiders. And if spiders are there, there's obviously lots of other insects and stuff for the spiders to catch. So it's a really, really good, healthy sign. This is Sarah McCracken up in our left-hand corner. She is head of fundraising and communications, I think, but she's quite new to RSPB, and she kind of heads up that kind of division for us. This is her vegetable garden. So it's not just all about flowers. You can use your space to plant vegetables, and most of our vegetables flower anyway, so you'll get to bring in lots of different insects that way. I think this is really lovely. She's got chard and kale and broccoli, and nasturtiums, which are absolutely brilliant. And she'll have a whole plethora of things coming in there, and I think it's netted off because she's having a bit of trouble with large white butterflies and caterpillars. This is my own allotment. It looks completely mental. It's actually not as mental as it looks. This is coming to the back end of the season, so I've let a lot of stuff go to flower for the pollinators. On the left hand side, there's big purple flowers or globe artichokes, so I'll always obviously take some for the plate, but I let some of them go to flower because they're so beautiful. My broad beans are just coming, and this is fennel. So the foreground is a bronze fennel, which looks really beautiful in the garden, and there's a lovely bronze tinge off the stems, but the flowers are covered in hoverflies all of the time. And at the back is just a normal green fennel, which also looks lovely in the garden. So it's not just has to be, don't focus yourselves merely on one area. Mix your vegetables and flowers up. You get lots of really good rewards. And if you don't have a lot of space, use your baskets. I plant strawberries in baskets, I plant lettuce leaves in baskets, and nasturtiums as well. So nasturtiums are brilliant for pollinators, but you can eat the leaves and the flowers, the lovely peppery taste that you can add to salads. This is Michelle from the Planning in Casework team. These are her red currants. She has picked them, but she has left a few for the birds, which is really lovely. So we don't need everything, we can leave a bit. And just very quickly, I want to talk a little bit about herbs, because who does not need herbs in their lives? This is thyme with a little honeybee on it. It's one of Matthew's pictures. So thyme is brilliant, it keeps giving. If you cut that back, just like flowers, it'll flower again. So it's really good, and obviously you can put it in your dinner. This is Karen. Karen is one of our learning officers and learning and development officers, and she's in our education team. So in RSPB, we go out to about 20,000 school kids every single year and tell them about nature, get them outside into their playgrounds or into reserves or out into green spaces and get their hands dirty, get them magnifying glasses, looking at insects, getting them to really remember what nature is about and giving them some of their first experiences with nature. Karen is an amazing lady. She also does lots of different things. So she works with young campaigners. So these are kind of teenagers and trying to get them excited to campaign for us, and also works with like Nuffield bursary students and really tries to educate them and do different research projects. So she's really, really amazing. These are her chives. This is a lovely wee video of a white-tailed bumblebee, I think it is. No, it's not. It's a red-tailed bumblebee on her chives. So let your chives go to flower. The flower still tastes really, really good. It's just like chives. But really good for pollinators. And in her background, I'm going to play that again, but she has lots of stuff in pots. So you don't need, like my own backyard, you do not need a lot of space. Pots are absolutely brilliant as well. I'm going to go. Excuse me. If you have any sun coming into your space, one plant that you really need to plant is lavender. It just keeps going. There's lots of different varieties. They're all good. This is 2 in my allotment, excuse me, and this is a little Carterby and Caroline's lavender in her garden as well. So all you need to remember, lavender won't really flower again, but you need to cut it back every year so it doesn't get really leggy and shrubby. So after it finishes flowering, cut it right back, and then next year you'll have lovely fresh growth and lots more flowers. This is another picture from Caroline's garden. Which I really love because it's completely mental, and everything's in there, and there's gorgeous colours from the purple buddleia to the pink geraniums and the crocosmia. It's really lovely, but one thing that Caroline's really careful not to do is too much weeding. She doesn't want to be too tidy. She wants to leave patches that are really good for wildlife. And back here she has a nettle that you can see, so nettles are really, really important. We've talked about different things that need them. And she doesn't use any insecticides or pesticides or herbicides. She is completely organic in all of her gardening, and she lets wee boys like this little ladybird who is on a nettle, be her insecticide, be her pesticide. That doesn't really make sense, but you know, they eat the aphids that we all hate and other wee bugs that destroy our plants. So honestly, sometimes gardening, you just have to take a wee step back and breathe and have a bit of faith and what you've created and let nature take its course and do its thing. This is another speckled weed. So we saw the first one on Terry's hawthorn bush, but nettles are really, really important. So if you can leave a wee patch somewhere, that will do really good. Because we know all these butterflies love big blousy flowers to go get their pollen and nectar. This is lupins, brilliant for butterflies. But peacocks also need nettles to lay their eggs, because the caterpillars, these are peacock caterpillars, not so glamorous, feed on nettles, and it's really important. That is their food source. So the butterflies can use lots of different flowers for their food source, but most butterflies have one particular plant that they use to lay their eggs for the caterpillars to feed on. So really interesting. And just when talking about weeds, ragwort is a really thing that farmers hate for good reason, but a wee bit in your garden does no harm. This is gorgeous hoverfly in this one, but also the cinnabar moth. This is the food plant of choice for that. So lockdown was very productive for some people. Michelle and her daughter Florence made this. So Florence is off from school. This is part of her homework, her everyday learning. And everything made in this here is completely recycled or found lying about the place. Although it's very, very impressive. And this is so brilliant because just like birds and just like us, insects need somewhere to shelter as well. They need somewhere safe and dry that they can go. And all of these little cracks and crevices are absolutely perfect. But you don't need an 11-year-old daughter to make a bug hotel. This is Ian Stewart. He is one of our site managers and he leads our conservation land management services, which is basically a big fancy machinery ring of tractors and flails and toppers. And this machinery ring does all the work on our reserves, but it's very, very specialized. So the kit is very fancy and it won't damage the underlying habitat. So we use it on our reserves, but we also use it in the wider countryside for other landowners who pay us to go in with our fancy kit and do the work. So it's a win-win. We get to protect lots of really important habitats and we get a bit of income as well. So it's really good. So this, I'm sure you won't mind, but he was furloughed because he couldn't do his job at the time. And when he wasn't farming, he took on another little project, just like Flo. This is an old dog kennel that was stuck up in his back field. And he turned it into a very luscious, a lovely book hotel. So he did put some special felt stuff down on the roof to make it waterproof, and he planted it up with sedums and alpines. So they look really, really beautiful. So he did a really good job. But do not fear, if you do not have the time, energy, effort, space, you can do what I do, and you can go to the shop and you can buy one. This here is quite small. It didn't cost very much. There's some brilliant ones on our RSPB webpage, just to say. But this is basically for solitary bees that like to nest by themselves. And hopefully it'll work well. It's quite new, so hopefully I'll watch the space and see if I get money from it. So one thing that you can do in your space for bumblebees, remember they're declining at an alarming rate, is make a really, really simple warm, safe place for them to go in the winter time. So queen bumblebees overwinter by themselves. They hibernate basically over the winter months, so they need somewhere to do that. And I have Ava and Ben are going to show you how.
Hi, I'm Eva and I'm going to show you how to make a bumblebee pot. So you just take a normal pot and put moss at the top to stop rain or water or anything getting in, and then you get straw, dry straw, hay, dry grass, anything that will keep them warm, and put it somewhere safe and just leave it.
Just like that. Very easy. I'm nearly finished, folks. Bear with me. I just want to talk a little bit about making ponds. This is Colin Graham. He is our volunteer development officer. So in Northern Ireland, we have over 280 volunteers that help us with all of the work that we do. So that could be everything from data inputting or mapping or field survey work or engaging with visitors in our reserves. Colin always looks for potential and opportunities for volunteers to do this. And this is what he made over the last couple of months. It's brand spanking new, but it looks absolutely amazing, and it is a pond. And there is no better way to bring nature into your garden. It does not have to be elaborate like this. It can be a bit smaller, it can be a bucket. This is Joanne Sherwood. She is our director of RSPB Northern Ireland, and this is her backyard. So obviously really informal, but really amazing for nature, and her pond has been there a little bit longer, but you can already see it start to come alive. And in that she found one of these. So let's not forget about our amphibians. Frogs are amazing. Just like our ladybirds, these are our pest controllers. These are the things that are gonna gobble up all our slugs. Do not use slug pellets, I beg you. They are horrendous things. So the slugs eat the slug pellets, then the songthrush comes along and eats the slug, or the frog comes along and eats the slug. And after a while they eat so many, they build up all those toxins, and excuse the pun, but they croak it as well. So please do not use them. Let nature do its thing. Create a space for these lovely things, and they will come and they will really help. And you might get a lovely little thing like this. And excuse the dirty fingernail, I couldn't crop it out because it just made the image too pixelated, but this is a smooth newt. This is a baby smooth newt. So these turn up in our ponds as well. So very nearly there. This is Ron Price. He is one of our super volunteers. He is pretty amazing and he does so much for us. He does mapping, he does all the boring stuff, and he does all the fun stuff. You couldn't beat him. But he set up a trail camera. He has a garden up in the Castlereagh Hills. And he set up a trail camera, and he got this lovely picture of a badger coming into his garden. He then fiddled around with the camera and he got it onto video format, and not that long later, this handsome chappie came into his garden. It's really lovely. And then very, very recently, he got another video of another lovely special thing. I'm going to show it to you. So hedgehogs are in really, really big trouble. They're critically endangered. We are losing them at a rate of knots. hedgehogs, as the name suggests, love hedges. They love our countryside. They need hedges. That's where they scuttle about, and they need the safety and the support of that. They're also probably eat slugs. Do not give slug pellets. They eat slugs and also end up in the same dilemma. This is Gregory Willihan. He is our head of operations, so he manages all of the work that happens in Northern Ireland on the ground. That is his job. So it's quite a big, important job. But this is Henrietta, and this was Henrietta was coming to his garden every night when he was living on the Ormo Road. So never, ever, ever, if you do lucky enough to get a hedgehog into your garden, do not feed it milk, but cat food or dry biscuits, dry cat biscuits or dog food works really well. So Henrietta was really skinny when he came to Gregory's house, and then she got really fattened up really nicely. I do not have a picture of it, but I do not want to forget about bats. Bats can come into your garden. They can forage over your trees. This is Michelle's on-cut bit, and she has bats foraging here over the time, but you'll see them. You can see them in the house. Really, really amazing. If you have bats, you're very, very lucky. This is not a garden bird. This is not a garden. This is Neil Warnock up on the left-hand side. He is a senior conservation officer with RSPB, and he does lots of things, but one of them is working with our farmers, and I'm managing a team of advisors that give advice to farmers. This is a lapwing chick. Lapwings have declined by 83% over the last 20 years. We have not very many pairs left, but they love peatland habitats. Peatland habitat is really, really important for us, not just for bird life and invertebrates and plant life, but from a carbon storage, from water storage. They're really, really important. Why I'm talking about this now is because I'm going to beg you, if there is one thing that you do from now on, please never buy peat compost. This is where it comes from. We are tearing it up from our countryside, from really, really, really special sites to put into our gardens. So we are destroying the habitat in the countryside to create stuff in our own gardens, which is ridiculous. But the peat companies that do this, they are trying to invest really heavily in peat-free alternatives. So you do not need to buy peat compost. If you go to a garden centre and there isn't any peat-free compost, go to the staff member and go, where is it? Can you please get it? Let there be a demand. Make them know that there is a demand for it. It works just as well. Of course, you don't have to go buy it. You can make your own. You can buy one of these little compost pods. Absolutely brilliant. Or this is Matthew's again, and just a wooden structure of pallets, and voila, he's this gorgeous compost, and the little robin who is the gardener's friend, as we know. I'm going to finish off with just a few slides of where you can go to get some more information from online resources. RSPB is a partner in the All Ireland Pollinator Plan. They have loads of stuff on there about bringing pollinators to your garden. We have just missed butterfly conservation's big butterfly count, but if you get started now, you'll be all set for next year. It's really important collecting this data so we know how our species are doing. RSPB website, loads and loads and loads and loads of stuff on there. Go and knock yourself out. It's absolutely brilliant. And if you fancy a walk somewhere away from your home, you could go to one of two of our reserves that have really lovely garden habitats. They're not formal gardens, of course. They're very wild. This is down at Portmore Loch, outside Achalee, outside Moira. Lots of lovely things to see there. Please go pay it a visit. This is Belfast Harbour, Window on Wildlife. We have a wildlife garden outside the front. Go have a look around. The visitor centres are still closed at the moment, but the hides are open, so you can go and see what's happening with the bird life as well. But please go. And lastly, but not leastly, is that a word? Lastly, but not least, sorry. If you do anything, can I please ask you to sign up for Actions for Nature? I don't know how much you know about RSPB, but it was set up back in the late 1800s by one woman called Emily Williamson and her friends. This is before women had the power to vote. And it was her job. She found out that people were killing avocets and egrets, these gorgeous birds, so they could wear feathers in their hair. And so she decided this was utterly ridiculous. We have to stop it. So this one woman with her bounty team of friends, within 5 years, they passed wildlife legislation to stop this. And RSPB was formed. And like since then, our mission has not changed. We are still here to save nature. That is our job. And to save nature, we need voices. We need everybody to work with us and shout as loud as we can to say, we do not want to live in a concrete jungle. We do not want to live in a big green, fluorescent green landscape. We want wildlife, we want nature, and you need to support that to make it happen. So please, hashtag action for nature. I'm going to leave you on this lovely picture of a long-eared owl chick, which was in a garden outside Banalhinch. So they don't need nest boxes, they just need a nice tree, and they just turn up. So you just never know what you will get in your garden. That is everything from me. I'm sorry I was a bit longer than I expected, but thank you very much for bearing with me.
Brilliant, Claire. No, everybody really enjoyed it. Lots of positive comments coming through there on the chat, and nobody dropped out during the whole presentation. So absolutely fantastic. A couple of questions. I'll just give you the two. Amy wants to know how rare is the greater spotted woodpecker, as she had one in her garden this weekend. And Emma Robertson asks, aren't the murres dangerous for bird strikes?
That's a good point. So great spotted woodpeckers, so they are still quite rare. They're quite widespread, so they're kind of spread across the whole of the island of Ireland now, but they are still rare, and to get one coming to your garden is an absolute treat. So enjoy it, and hopefully they'll be back next year. They might be back for their young this year, so it's a real treat. I haven't, yeah, lovely, very nice. So when I put up the murres, I was really nervous actually about that, and I had goldfinches coming in, and they did a little bit of tap 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 tap, and I was thinking, I'm really excited. I've never had goldfinches in the yard before, but I was thinking, oh, I'm gonna have to take these murres down. But they settled, and because I've been working from home, I'm checking it, and they're not there. And because my backyard, if you think about it from an airstrike perspective, is almost impossible because it's a very, very narrow tunnel. So they're just jumping from one bit to another. They couldn't actually fly into any of the murres, thankfully. But you're absolutely right. You have to be careful about these things.
And finally, Christopher Donnelly. Now, Chris and Terry had a wee reunion in the chat box as you were making your presentation there, just to let you know. But Chris wants to know, is the Rathlin boat still operating? Do you know?
It is operating. The times are restricted. You do need to book. The Seabird Centre is not open and will probably not be open in this year. But some of the facilities on the islands are open. So it's a real shame, but it's just the way it's been. But go on to the Ballycastle Ferry website and you'll see the times.
Okay, I think that's all the questions, unless there's any burning ones that somebody wants to raise before we finish. No? Okay, can I just thank everybody that has been involved in the organisation of this tonight, especially Gavin from the Rainbow Project, who worked with us to get it set up as well, and we're using his Zoom account tonight, so big thanks to Gavin. Also Tabitha, who dealt with all the technical glitches that we've had over the past day or two and made sure that we all knew what we were doing as well, so big thanks to Tabitha. And finally, a big thanks to Claire. Excellent presentation, Claire. Loads of brilliant comments coming through on the chat box if you want to read that afterwards as well. And a big thank you to everybody who came here tonight. So have a good evening, everybody.